Hello and welcome to the Tent Making Christianity podcast. My name is Drew.
And I'm David.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Hope you've all had a good week. David and I are here and we are set to go. And this week we're joined by one returning guest and one new guest. So back with us this week is Noah Granger. You may remember he was with us for a couple of podcasts, maybe a year or two ago, talking about the Church of Christ cult on campus and then also some other ministry work he was doing. But he's back and he's with his ministry partner now. Brandon Basals is joining us. So welcome, Brandon. Welcome, Noah. Good to see you guys.
Thank you, Drew. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, good to have you guys back. So I will go ahead and turn it over to David here, and we'll kind of reintroduce you guys to the audience, and then get with the exciting news that you guys have about the ministry you've started. So, David, you want to go ahead and take the reins here for a while?
Well, first things first, Brandon, did he get your name right?
I mean, it was close enough, you know?
Close
Okay.
enough.
Okay.
All right.
It was passable. I think he's done wonders beyond elementary school teachers. So
Okay.
All right.
great.
Passing grade. We'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is something that I think has been kind of a long time coming, but uh I really wanted to have you two on again. Well, Noah again, Brandon you for the first time because you're doing some exciting things. And it's always a fun opportunity to talk to you guys, but now to kind of bring it in that we had an excuse to do this now. So yeah, I don't really have a good starting place. So I guess yeah, Noah, Brandon, do you want to kind of take this? Like, what's going on? How are things going? What's new?
Sure. Well, we're very excited to be chatting about this. I know that to use a Christian analogy, it feels like this ministry is in its Genesis 1 stage. It just started, and we're just actually barely now getting content up on the internet, doing the pop-up libraries, a few things that we're going to be chatting about, more so as we go along in this podcast. But yeah, so it's going to be very exciting sharing about that. Um, so Brandon is actually a good buddy of mine that I met my sophomore year of college. We had a bit of bromance going on. He's been my best buddy since then in college. So around the end of college, I started thinking about campus ministry, reflecting on everything related to campus ministry, and I realized I'm not going to have this anymore. And what has kind of replaced that outlet, and that desire to do ministry, I guess you could say what this ministry became is a culmination of those years in college doing campus ministry, which a lot of that was done with Brandon. And so as soon as I had this idea to start a ministry, I brought it up to Brandon. He joined me, and we're also in partnership with another organization. This gets a little complicated there, but this other organization is called North County Projects. It's actually they're located, as the name suggests, in North Orange County. And so with them, I'm a volunteer apprentice, which means I do essentially I try to do evangelism in my free time. A volunteer apprentice is kind of a fancy title to that. Um, Essentially, what they do though is they make disciples very simply. They do Bible dialogues with the intention of making disciples that make disciples that make disciples. So I joined them, and then kind of I had this discussion with them about this idea I had for a ministry. They supported me. I corralled Brandon in to join me. So that's kind of the foundation to where this all comes from. And I'll kind of see if Brandon wants to contribute anything to that.
Yeah, I mean, from the get-go, he told me this is like May, I guess, when we're graduating already. And it probably was in his head for a lot longer than that, if I had to assume. So, um, and I think both Noah and I, what's unique is even though we've done campus ministry together, we both have different, I guess, not, I don't want to say views, but I guess things where we come from. So, different ministries we've served, different experiences within that same campus ministry. What he was doing was not the same thing I was doing, vice versa. David can probably see a forefront to that. Um, so I think having those two different perspectives, not working against each other, but kind of melding into one and kind of going from there. that was a lot of the basis for, I think, what we're doing here. Um, and I mean, I think if you think about if you go online, you look at all the photos, no doubt you will see more of Noah's presence in terms of physical. I mean, he's the one out there doing the more pop-ups and kind of starting up that. I mean, he's got the whole thing in his back of his car. He's shown me maybe, I don't know, 4 times ever since he's updated it, you know?
5.
Five, yeah.
Who's counting
Uh,
though?
yeah. And my role is more on the online aspect in terms of the content actually going out. I mean, both him and I, he's spoiler, he's getting married pretty soon, and I'm in grad school, so we're both pretty busy at the moment, but having some consistency is, I guess, part of the process. So that's what we're trying to do. At least that's what I'm trying to do. So. But yeah, I mean, I've been a part of, youth ministries. I've been part of Crew, and then right now I'm helping out with discipleship group over another church. So just a lot of different things that I think we both bring to the tables. We don't necessarily both have the same strengths, but we're definitely melding them in together.
Yeah, it's always good, right? You don't want to have the same skill sets. It's if you complement each other, it's a much better setup and a lot more valuable. So Noah, I mean, you've graduated, you've got a job, you're starting a new ministry. Not much going on in your life, right? You know,
No weddings on
y-
the horizon.
y-
Yeah, that
Congratulations, by the way.
no, thank you.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. So I'm kind of curious because we're tent making Christianity, and uh, our premise is we're kind of a ministry to people who uh, aren't necessarily aren't necessarily called to ministry proper, right? Uh, Maybe you're not a pastor or you don't feel called to ministry in that aspect, but you still want to participate in ministry and do that from a perspective of having a another job that supports you, and your ministry is kind of a standalone type thing. It's not where you make your money. So what's it been like transitioning from college to where you're kind of part of one ministry and now you're starting your own ministry?
Hmm. That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think the 40 hours a week definitely changes things. I was on campus all day in college, and class you have a few a day, and there may be an hour at a time. So I think first of all, time management is the biggest point of adjustment in terms of being able to serve the Lord. And man, looking back at college, you definitely do miss all the time you have in between your classes to devote yourself to ministry. So that's definitely one thing that's been a big point of adjustment. But honestly, um, it's exciting in the sense that when it comes to this ministry, I feel like I have this sort of creative liberty to of course, in collaboration with Brandon to do a lot more things than what I was doing before. I had a specific position in crew leadership, which was outreach, student evangelism. Um, Now it's an entire ministry that we're trying to start where I get to basically have a hand at doing a lot of different things, which is a lot of fun. So I get to you know, take care of some of the more logistical things, financial things, which honestly, financially, there's not much going on right now because we're in the Genesis 1 stage. The finance, hopefully, as we get to maybe past Genesis 11, we'll, get have some more going on there. If you're following along with the analogy, but
Right, right.
um, but of course, yeah, as I was mentioning, I was a marketing student. So one thing is, creating, in a sense, a brand is something that's really fun, and creating like a logo and working on videos and content creation. That's always something that I've loved. Now I get to utilize this space for research purposes where um, I can do research. I plan to do research on specific topics and share it on the internet. That's not something I did with Crew, but I can still pursue the same passion for evangelism by, opening up a free pop-up a bookstore, if you will, and letting people come by and, take Bibles, take up, books about apologetics and sparking conversations. And this is stuff that I've always wanted to do and I always loved to do in college. So, as I mentioned before, it's a culmination of kind of what, everything that I really loved doing in ministry. And, so I think now I feel like college kind of prepared me for this point to where now I can do this. But also there's the adjustment of it's no longer just a college campus. This is the world, the internet, the public space altogether, not just college campus. So that's another adjustment point as well. So I'll kind of let Brandon piggyback on anything there as well. Since I know he's now in grad school and things are a bit different in his life as well. So I don't know if there's any, relatability there on his end, schedule wise as well. But yeah, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I mean, uh, again, I think we're coming from different strengths, and I guess for me, a lot of it, I mean, I'm psych major. That's what I was. So all about, I think that people connection, knowing people, trying to like get to know who this is. And even right now in grad school, I mean, my main focus is counseling ministry. That's my main focus. So it's, we can create a brand, we can do all this, but at the end of the day, we're not ministering to like, blank faces on the internet. These are real people behind their screens who, eternity has something to do with them. So, in that sense, I don't say that as a stress factor in it. I mean, I think all of this is a passion project, if you will, right? I think Noah would agree wholeheartedly with that one.
Yeah, I wish I would have used that verbiage, passion project. I love that.
Yeah. And a lot of this is oriented, I mean, again, it's in its ground roots right now. It's trying to sprout. It's sprouting. And I think that's kind of the exciting portion where we get to kind of take a lot of liberties, see what works, what doesn't work, see what are people drawn to, what might they have questions about. I think that's a whole lot of it is, I mean, in some sense, yes, the apologetics, and in some sense, yes, the evangelism, and the other sense of just what do you want to talk about? How can we meet you where you're at? I mean, that's a big part of counseling ministry. We look to where we meet people. We're not trying to bring them up to something where we want them. We're just trying to meet them where they're at and then follow what the Bible has to say about that? So I think, again, it's those strengths that are both kind of going in the same direction. So, yeah.
So I suppose then we should actually get into what is this new ministry that you're actually doing? Because you launched it, you've started putting some content out there, you've been doing both kind of the online and the in-person kind of facets of this. So what are you guys actually doing?
hmm So this was something I prefaced earlier. So it's I essentially am partnering with North County Project, or I initially started partnering with North County Project. Now I guess it's in a sense Brandon and I both, but I'm more so in contact with them. But uh, as I mentioned, North County Project, they have the intention of making disciples very simply, and making disciples that make disciples and so forth. And so, um, with that in mind, that's the goal of the ministry itself, is to make disciples. So this looks different in each context, each thing that we're going to do with this ministry. When there's online content, I'm hoping, I'm not hoping, I know this for a fact because I'm doing it. I have a Google form in the comment or in the description of each video where someone can sign up and join a Bible dialogue with North County Project. These Bible dialogues, they start you off going through the Gospel of Mark, and it's all about, actually, quite frankly, what Brandon just said, meeting the person where they're at, what questions they have, what they want to talk about. I think it's, you see it often where, someone goes through a Bible study with a new group, a new church, and so forth, and it's, the church or the group's what they have planned, right? It's their agenda. They go through their series of things. Whereas with North County Project, these Bible dialogues are much different. They are focused on the person itself that wants to seek God. They want to seek the Lord, and they have questions, or they don't know where to start. So the end goal is people signing up for that, joining a Bible dialogue, and having a space to talk about God, ask questions. And it's of course a very seeker friendly, safe place for that. So that's the objective. And so that's what it looks like, for instance, on the online space. Now, something else we do is that I think we kind of mentioned earlier were pop-up libraries or bookstores. I'm still trying to decide whether to call it a library because they're not taking the book and returning it, but I like the sound of library more than store because if I call it a free bookstore, it's not a store. So I don't know what to call it. We'll figure it out, but essentially what I do is I've been setting up a cart of books that I gather from thrift stores, eBay. It's quite easy, very affordable books, but ones that are about apologetics, ones that of course I've vetted. So some of my favorites would be more than a carpenter, or Reason for God. It could Cold Case Christianity, all the classics that really got us into apologetics. I love those books, and I want to give them away. I always have loved giving them away, even when I was in crew. So I set up essentially carts of books and have a sign, and if people want to come by and take one, they can. And of course, that also links back to if they want to talk, if they want to have a dialogue, if they want to connect with us, you know, um, perhaps we end up reading the Gospel of Mark together in a Bible dialogue. That's always, of course, the objective. But either way, I guess the true objective in that sense, because there's different ways to make disciples, is as I guess as we've kind of named the ministry Stones in Shoes, it's to leave a stone in people's shoes. Specifically, I guess with the pop-up libraries, you have that the chance of doing that. Someone walks by in public, they find a book that maybe they see, a book cover that looks kind of interesting. They check it out, and there's something. Maybe they read about the minimal facts argument, and they're like, I didn't know this. Jesus thing has like some, this has historical credence to it. It leaves a stone in their shoe. So I guess of course that's something I would also see as successful if we're able to achieve that. So there's quite a bit going on. Aside from there's online content and also this in-person, setting up thing going on. In terms of the specific content, since I know I haven't mentioned anything about that, I know we have David Johansen as our very first guest. In our first interview, which we talked about more of the cumulative case for Christianity. And in the most recent episode, I had my buddy Nick talk about miracle stories and experiences he's had in ministry. So there is an interview series going on right now. It's very, I guess it's for those interested in apologetics, it's sort of on that entry level basis where it's, introducing a lot of these topics. However, as I also mentioned earlier, there will be pieces of content that are a bit different. Ones that are more research based, where
Coffee tier list. He wants to do a coffee tier list,
yeah,
guys.
we're gonna we're gonna do some fun stuff too. Coffee tier list. Yeah, it's not just gonna be theology this and apologetics this and Bible study here. We also want to do some fun things to maybe so I think people, it's cool if people can notice that Christians are normal people like them too. And who doesn't love coffee? So that's an easy way to do that, right? And bridge that gap there. But yeah, as I mentioned, there's research that I might do on a specific topic that I'm really interested in, and this now is an outlet where I can hopefully share it with people. But also, the last thing I'll mention is I think I'm also drawn to share things on the internet that I wish my younger self, as a younger believer, not yet eating meat but drinking milk, if you will, wish I could tell my younger self. So I think something a specific topic I'm working on right now is the sort of angst that comes with the question, well, I want to believe in God, but I don't know if I can. And they have misconceptions about what faith is, about what belief is. And that's something that I struggled with for so long that kept me from pursuing a relationship with God. So, um, a video, for instance, I'm working on right now is taking a look at the question of what is faith in of itself, what is the essence of faith, the common misconceptions we have of what faith is, and then kind of exploring that further because I think the answer will lessen people's anxiety about, their struggle with intellectual doubts and their struggles with, the intellectual belief itself you know, of Christianity. And so that's sort of there will be times where there are just one-off videos about something I feel led to share about. Yeah, all in all, long answer. I know a lot of stuff going on. It's a little all over the place, but you know what? I think it's our passion project, and we're not gonna hold ourselves to just a lane and stay in that lane. We're gonna this is kind of what we're doing. So I'll let Brandon contribute anything else that he'd like to contribute.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it again, it's experimental. It's a lot of seeing what works, what doesn't work right now. And I mean, as far as my process, no, I think Noah again has a larger, I guess, picture that because he's been thinking about it longer per se. So, maybe a bunch of different ideas. And when we meet up for coffee, a lot of it's just brainstorming set ideas, what work, what might sound good, and hey, maybe that idea doesn't sound great, things like that. And again, I'm trying to get this point across of like, again, if we're trying to see people actually be exposed to something that they might have not been
Mm,
thinking about all that much. Because I mean, that's campus ministry 101, and that's youth ministry 101.
Mhm.
That's most ministry 101 of people did not think of this thing. And wow, I get to think about it in a different way than what I was taught or this preconceived cultural perspective I had. What does it actually mean to be a Christian? Does that mean we're in a political landscape where people are going to be have all sorts of ideas and those things that are attached with them that are far, far, far from the actual Jesus,
Mhm.
you know? And all that to say is, again, like for something like, for example, for the podcast series, um, it's not like we're just bringing warm bodies for people to talk and there you go, here you go. But it's what do we feel is going to be actually helpful to people? What is actually gonna I don't think the point is to dramatically change your life because you watched a YouTube video, um, on a Zoom call. But I mean, it could, it could. I think God can do anything. But I don't think that's the grand purpose of someone's going to come to Christ because of this video right here, right now. I think a lot of it's as a pastor once said at Crew, a pastor of mine, a fraction of the action, right? So a lot of people, it takes a lot of exposure. It takes a lot of times to actually hear the gospel, actually hear truth spoken into for them to actually maybe even just consider it, Because you never know where people are at in life. You never know um, what they're going through. You never know what beef they've got with God right now, you know? And I mean, especially in the online landscape,
Mhm.
we can almost, and I'll explain this analogy because I literally just heard it not too long ago from a different source. But, most people like to view God like when you go to see a lion at the zoo and you're going in and you watch this thing, wow, I know all the facts about this thing. Wow, that's powerful. It's amazing. Okay, that's sure. As long as it's in the cage, it doesn't affect me. It's not scary. It doesn't change anything about my life. But the moment you go home and that lion's sitting in your couch, that's a different story. Now this thing, you work your life around it. It does not change it for you. So, and that's how we should view God. God, God changes those things. It's a fear that is warranted because of respect. And, the lion situation, probably your life. But in here in this situation, what I'm talking to say is that people, they can view on an online platform kind of from the glass right now, but eventually, hopefully, through different people, however God's working in their lives, how that's going to affect them in person, how's it going to affect them actually in their life, you
Mm.
know?
Yeah, something I want to echo. I kind of want to echo what Brandon said there too about, God's gonna save people the way that His sovereign will decides to do so, right? And I First Corinthians 3:6, I pulled up the verse because I don't know it verbatim, but I want to be able to read it verbatim. Goes Paul says, I planted the seed, Apollos watered it, but God made it grow. And then of course he goes on to say, so neither he who plants nor he who waters is anything, but only God who makes things grow. And I think that's something that Brandon and I certainly want to submit to is you know, wherever this ministry supplies aid or however God decides to use it in someone's, path to, salvation and coming to know Jesus. Um, I mean, however we can contribute is such a blessing that God allows us to, be fellow workers with him because of course as my buddy Nick Ward says he doesn't need us. He how graceful is he to, put up with us and let us, to let us even be fellow workers with him. What a blessing it is. And so, of course, that's something that Brandon and I certainly want to, acknowledge as well. And I think that it's cool how it's fun for both of us though to be serving and how we're excited. It's cool. I don't want to. Of course, you never want to call your faith um, a hobby, right? Because faith is more important than any hobby should be, right? But um, what I will say is I think the giddiness and the excitement and the passion is kind of, it's like a hobby in that sense. Like we love to talk about God. We love to um we love to do the serving aspect of it, and it's such a blessing. So I think that I guess in that way, it is kind of analogous to what, a hobby is like in terms of one's, experience. But um, yeah.
Yeah, I always like to describe this as, I'm doing this to give back, right?
Mhm.
I'm grateful for what God has given me, and this is the way I get to express that gratitude back. And it's a form of worship too, right? I'm worshiping God with my mind, trying to follow His commands as best I can, and really feel like this is a good outlet for that. So, yeah, I think you guys are doing a great job there. And your the name of your ministry, Stone and Shoes, reminds me of Greg Kokel. I'm sure that's probably not a surprise to you to hear that, because he always talks about putting a stone in people's shoe, give them something to think about, make them a little bit uncomfortable, kind of chew on it, and some of the other things you've been talking about, just advancing people along in their faith, not getting so focused on getting that altar call or that commitment, but he describes it as advancing someone in baseball, right?
Mhm.
Maybe you don't. He says he's not a guy who leads a lot of people to Christ, right? But he maybe advances them from first base to second base, or sometimes even getting up to bat, just making them think and getting them ready, because there are harvesters out there that do a really good job at kind of sealing the deal and bringing people to Christ and closing it up. But I think there are a lot of us, especially in apologetics, we're kind of moving them, right? And yeah, I think you explained it really well. It's We understand God is the one doing the work and changing the hearts, right? But He does allow us to participate in that process, and seems to want us to do that. So I think there's value in it for us to, um, you don't want to use the word assist God, but right, but He's allowing us to be part of that process and allowing us to uh, help Him achieve His goals. So I think that's great. Um, One thing I'm kind of curious about, as you guys are starting this ministry, David and I have been doing this for close to 7 years now. And yeah, we can
Like,
talk about some of the rough starts. And I think it probably took us a good year and a half to kind of hit our stride and really get to where we were comfortable with our format. And
Wait, we hit a stride?
I'd like to think so. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
uh, but you're kind of in that new ministry startup phase, and so What are some of the things that you struggle with as a new ministry? Can I have an idea since I went through it and David went through it, but for those out there who are kind of curious and are thinking about doing these things, what are some of the difficulties or the things people may not realize about starting up a ministry like this?
You want to start with that one, Brandon?
Yeah, I was gonna ask actually. That's good. Views are very tough. That's a tough one to start off with.
Yeah, that
Uh,
doesn't go
as a,
away, by the way.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I uh being more on the online component with it with the Instagram and looking at it through that. I'm not on the YouTube, but I'm sure Noah knows exactly what I'm talking about as well. Um,
Mm.
but with the Instagram especially, it's you try on your platforms and Christianity is a topic that people either um as as C.S. kind of opposite to what C.S. Lewis says, people find a mild importance, right?
Mm,
A lot of people. Um and either it's a more household kind of staple thing. You just maybe you do it, maybe you don't. You kind of choose that, or it's especially now with I mean we're speaking on November 6th, right?
hmm
So a lot of people view it in a very negative lens. You are this, you are that, and instantly. And so again, so far from what Jesus has talked about or is, right? And so people don't want to associate with it, right? It's just an eyesore for a lot of many. I mean, Jesus says, like, we're either going to give a good odor that's really appealing to a lot of people, or we're going to give one that a lot of people are like, ooh, I don't want that, you know? So it's challenging for people besides those who already are Christians that I mean and that comes with many different stages who want to already interact with the content, right? And I think it might not even be just the views or something. I mean, I joked about it, right? Views itself that are the struggle, but it might be being disheartened by that, being like,
mm,
wow, this didn't get as much, views or whatever likes that I expected it to. Especially when you have a big boom. I mean, we our first two or three, I think the first two were actually pretty big in terms of how people looked at it and likes and all that. And then you can immediately associate, wow, we're doing great. Wow, this is gonna be every time. And
hmm
then third one hits around like, wow, people don't care. You know? And you try to do on your own platform. And I know this. I mean, and most people know this. If you post something on your own social media and it's your graduation or something. I'm using graduation because we just know
hmm
and I just graduation. A lot of people, for him, it's engagement. A lot of people are gonna like it. They're gonna say congratulations. Wow, that's amazing. But and maybe even a baptism, right? Maybe. Um, but the moment you put some other Christian thing that's on there, most people are like, I don't want it. Unfollow. You know? That's a lot a people. And I'm speaking from experience. I mean, I see that in a lot of when I post something that's Christian, and this is just on an online platform. Imagine what happens in person. You don't have to, because a lot of people are just, I don't want anything to do with that. You saw people on campus ministry. Why are you talking to me? I have my AirPods in, guy. It's a lot. But I think that's one of the main, I guess, struggles. It can be disheartening, especially if it's grassroots right now. It can be a little disheartening if something doesn't pan out the way you wanted it to. And maybe I'll come back to share more, but I want to give Noah a little time to talk about that.
Yeah, the internet space is a challenge and one that like I recall spending about 2 years on a music project, releasing it. I think I got maybe like a couple hundred views on it on YouTube, and then it took years of work. And then one day I, get a ukulele and play a SpongeBob song on my ukulele for 30 seconds, post it on a YouTube Shorts, and that gets 5 times more views than the whole music project I spent 2 years working on. So, it's honestly the internet's just wild. It's you never know what's gonna catch someone's attention. But in terms of, I actually have had no expectations as to what how many people would listen to what we're saying or watching. I haven't had too much I haven't had any expectations about it, to be quite frank with you. I think maybe 12-year-old me building like roller coasters on Roller Coaster Tycoon, recording those roller coasters and then putting it on YouTube and expecting like everyone to really care about the roller coasters 12-year-old me built, and then being let down that actually no one cares about what 12-year-old me built on Roller Coaster Tycoon. I think that letdown really prepared me for this, for this moment. Um,
Now's
but
a good time to plug that book too on roller coaster.
no, 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 no plugs, no plugs.
Good, good, good.
Tell
No,
us
we're
about
good.
your roller coaster book.
Nope, we're good.
Okay.
No, no, have freelance work, got paid, nothing to do it. But two
And
hundred
he's talking
dollars
about his book.
sounds like a lot when you're a sophomore in college. Anyways, back this is what always happens when, when I'm talking to David. We always, end up somewhere. We end up on a different island, but that's okay. That's the fun of it. Yeah, so I think the online space though is certainly one where I look forward to trying to now that I'm, I guess, college educated and marketing school and whatnot. I'm hoping maybe I can, pull some strings here and make sure the content is as high quality as possible. No compromise to the no to the content itself, obviously. It's not like I'm gonna try to get clickbaity. I can't stand that stuff, of course. But in terms of the quality of the content itself, I guess that's something that we'll see with the online space what happens. I'm not too concerned with it, but I think the other challenge that hasn't been brought up is I think just resources. And when I was doing my first ever pop-up bookstore, I had like tiny little ladder shelf and a tiny little like chalkboard, and um honestly that ladder shelf looked a lot bigger in my bedroom than it did on the sidewalk in a public space. And I got out there and I felt it was like a feeling of nakedness,
Mm.
right? Sitting out there and people walking by and they're like, who's this dude with the little ladder shelf with books? And I had maybe like 10 books, which not that I have so many now, but I mean, this wasn't that long ago, but um, yeah, so I think it's a matter of like building up what resources we have and what we have to give away. And I think just the shortage of time since, Brandon decided to further his education, and so he's got a shorter schedule. Could you believe that? Brandon being even more educated. How exciting is that?
Literally
Um,
impossible.
impossible. But I think time in of itself is also a resource, right? And so that's another one that sometimes some weeks we tend to be short on, some more than others. So I think those are sort of the challenges we face. But I don't think it's something that we're stressing too much about. It's not like we have like this vast number of donors that are relying on us for some certain result, or there's no there's it seems like this whole time, it feels like we're not doing something where we can necessarily fail. Like we haven't set expectations. We're doing this because we love to do it, and it's like shrugs, whatever happens happens, right? If we can participate in the building of God's kingdom and be fellow workers with him, and then that's we're going to serve him, we're going to do that, and it's going to be great. But I think past that there's no tangible expectation. So I think that's been to our benefit, though. Would you say so, Brandon?
Yeah, I'd say that. I mean, the only other thing I'd add on to that question that Drew presented with was I think any ministry really, literally name any ministry, can have ideas of what it wants to do, and then it needs to be able to relate those with the people it's actually connecting with, and form not just something that's here you go, it's on the platter, eat it, but it's like this is actually good, this is good stuff that we're trying to give. And I'm not saying in terms of quality by itself, I'm saying in terms of how does this serve, people who might not know certain subjects, or they're very little in their faith right now, or where what have you, you know? So that's the only other thing that popped up to mind for me.
Yeah, I'll pass to David for the next question in just a second. But you guys were talking about not knowing what content takes off and what doesn't. The most popular article on our website that's searched, and it used to drive me crazy because I thought, we put out all this great stuff on the problem of evil and cults and all this deep stuff, but our number one article is Doom a Christian video game?
Hmm.
That's the one that gets, and not David did a great job
I'm
with
pretty
that
proud of that
article.
one.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean, he
man.
did a great job, but you're like, really, of all things, that's what we get search.
It's a solid question.
Yeah,
There was a time when it was the, could God create a rock so big he couldn't lift? It's like it's never the
Mm.
the ones that you're truly like confident this is going to be the one that takes off that'll suddenly take off. You do this long enough, you're in for a few roller coasters yourselves.
Mhm. Why be interested in the cosmological argument or teleological argument? Why be interested in any of that stuff when honestly, what about the dinosaurs, right? Like
Yeah.
Firsthand right here.
It
yeah.
had to come up at some point. So, Drew, I
Yep.
don't know if we've talked about this before, but back in crew, back when I was Noah and I were running an apologetic study together, it became a running gag slash, at least for me, source of frustration that no matter what topic you're doing, sooner or later, every conversation comes back to either dinosaurs or the Nephilim.
And the second half of that is my fiance's fault, but Brandon's definitely at fault for the first half,
Hey,
the
you know
dinosaurs,
what? One of the guys that, we helped I helped disciple, that was what got him in. So,
Yep.
It's true.
that's
It's
what
true.
literally drew him in. He was just listening off to the side, and we were getting into conversation. You could hear him chuckling off to the side. He comes at the end of it, and well, there's our story with him, right?
And now
Start
we're all gone, and he's still running the show over
yeah,
there.
Yeah.
exactly.
yeah.
Now
So
he's the dinosaurs question is actually what has helps lead someone to now run that apologetic study group. So,
My
you
goodness.
never know.
exactly.
It's similar to the online content thing, as I guess Drew was alluding to.
Yeah, that's I think Lee Strobel calls that ricochet evangelism,
Yeah.
where you're talking to someone and it bounces off of them and hits someone else, and but that's something that everybody should be aware of, right? It may not be that person you're talking to, but there's an audience listening. Maybe it's online and they're not interacting in that conversation, but they're reading it and they're following along. So always good to keep in mind, right? It may not be effective on the person that you're talking to, but there's someone else out there listening or watching that may very well be getting the message that you're putting out. So
It's kind of the beauty of doing this in such a public space too, kind of what you were talking about, Noah. Yeah, you are kind of being vulnerable, putting yourself out there, but that's getting more eyes even than you might expect at any given time. I
Hmm.
do think your perspective on kind of balancing between you want to put your best foot forward, you want to put good content out there, you want people to see it, but also kind of recognizing we can't really go in with any expectation there. I think that is healthy. I would love to hear though, what kind of are your goals? Like whether for the ministry as a whole or even for you two personally, like maybe how are you hoping to grow in some sense through this endeavor?
Hmm. Do you want to start with that one as well, Brandon, or would you like me to?
you can go ahead.
Sure. Um, so I think there's two questions there. I think one is what's our goal, just ministry wise, and the second is for speaking from like from a more personal standpoint in growth. So with the first question, um yeah, as I mentioned, there's no tangible, we want this many views or we want to give away this many books at a bookstore. But I think I could definitely name a few goals that would be I guess I could name a few though. I think one would be it would be really cool to through this ministry lead a Bible dialogue with North County Project, which is
Hmm.
kind of where a lot of this runs back to in terms of if we in this ministry if we do come across or meet someone that is seeking the Lord and looking for guidance and looking to have, other Christians around them, I think it would be really cool to do a Bible dialogue through this ministry and in partnership with North County Project. Um, So that would be one goal. Is it would be really cool to see some Bible dialogues happening, I guess. But I think the difficult thing with this ministry, especially with the pop-up bookstores, and this is something you run into a bit when it comes to evangelism on a college campus, is you really don't see the fruits of your labor the way that the harvester will,
Hmm.
right? Like the harvesters, they get to see the end result of what they're doing, because the end result is, the part, the part that they have, that they are contributing to, right? I guess in this instance, someone takes a book and leaves, or this has actually happened last Friday. Someone takes a picture of the sign I had and just walks away.
Hmm.
Perhaps it leaves a stone in their shoe, but you don't really know. So I also am, I think, if at the end of the day, when I, take everything down, put all my books and, all my equipment that I set up with, when I put it back in the Honda Fit, get back in the car and take off, I think that if I think a goal, this one being, of course, not tangible, but something that I, internally can, know is, um, I think I may have dropped quite a few seeds today. I don't know what's going to happen to them. I don't know if they're going to tend to the soil after dropping that seed. We'll see what happens. But I think I dropped some seeds, and I can, rest knowing that, I got to do that. And, it won't be until the kingdom comes that I see, you know, um, what treasures there await for, the work that I got to participate in doing with God. But that kind of leads me into the more personal side of things. I think the personal goal and objective, I guess, would be just, this even can become a theological question, or an apologetics theological question, is why serve at all, and what's the purpose of it? And I think for me, I mean, God doesn't need us. It's good for us that we serve, and that we serve with Him, in the same way that, uh, you know, donating and giving money to the poor. It's actually just, it's good for yourself, right? And so, of course, is Matthew 28, as Jesus talks about the Great Commission, and that being really our call, is to make disciples. I think that, that's something that I want to participate in. I think that, setting up in public space and having dialogue with strangers, and, sharing the gospel on the internet. I mean, these are things that, Christ calls us to make disciples and to proclaim his name boldly. And so I think that's what Brandon and I want to do. And it's good for us. And it's a blessing that it is so fun for us. Not all the time, I don't want to, of course there are challenges and times where, maybe it's not fun, but I think, just generally it's healthy and it's good for us. And it's, what more important thing can we do on a weekly basis than to contribute to the coming and building of God's kingdom? So,
Yeah, nice. So, another question I had, you were talking about the small groups you had where people were coming in and doing a Bible discussion. It kind of reminded me of, I told the story before about how I came to Christ through Alpha Ministry, and it sounded very similar. You would watch a video and then have a discussion group afterwards, and you had group facilitators. Um, how does your training in apologetics help you with that aspect of just discussing Jesus with other people? And because I know a lot of people don't see a lot of value in apologetics. I think just give them the gospel and that's all you need. You don't really need to make arguments for God. But so I guess it's a two-part question. How does that help you? And then uh, the other people who are participating in this, is it an apologetics enterprise, or is it more uh, we're just doing evangelism, and if you happen to have some skills in apologetics, so much the better?
Also, Brandon, if you wanted to address the
yeah.
previous question too, if you want to kind of circle back to that too, we can kind of mesh these.
Yeah, I mean, um, it, because the question, I'm trying to remember how the exact phrasing was going, because the big dialogue Noah just had. But
Yeah, I
um,
talk a long time.
no, it
I
was good. It was good. I'm just trying to remember the exact phrasing so I don't go off track on something else. Can you remind me real quick?
My question or his question?
The last one that you asked Noah.
Had to do with like kind of goals for the ministry and also personal growth goals.
Yeah. That's what it was. I mean, from what I've seen from a lot of this, and I think it's a goal that can be both. I don't want to say check mark, but it kind of it happens and it keeps happening. Is one of it encourages other Christians. I think a large part of
Hmm.
this, no matter how big or quote unquote successful it might be, um, I think I've both read quite a few messages and like when I've talked about it with people or in person where people are very pretty encouraged by like, why do you care to do this? And then you get to explain that. And they're Christians, right? And you'd
Hmm.
think, well, Christians should they would already know answers. It's like, well, be a little surprised on that. So I think a large part of it is encouragement and people, whether that's people we're now meeting in our day-to-day lives, right? I've gotten to talk about this plenty while like grad school. And I mean, I go to a college that is supposedly more Christian, and people are like, wait, what? You care about sharing this stuff? You know? So I think that's part of it. And even people that we've known, right? People that we've led before, or people that we used to co-lead with, or whichever case it was, and they're encouraged, right? And they're to keep doing what they're doing, good works, or to start doing something, right? So I think that's part of a goal in mind, at least I've had, where it's not a goal set in like, wow, we need to encourage 3 people today, right? It's not that sort of goal, but
Not a
it's
quota.
right, and it just happens. And I think that's more of a reciprocal kind of encouragement, right? You're getting encouraged is encouraging me to keep doing it, and other people are going to get encouraged, right? And I mean, we can see that in just how churches operates. I mean, whole part of acts and things like that is people got encouraged by someone to do this, right? So, yeah, I think there's a big portion of it. And the other aspect, at least personally for me, would be kind of getting, I mean, you gotta get your hands dirty a little bit, right? To try to see do this thing. And it could be a little weird to go from doing I mean, I think I've joked plenty of times with David where I'm like, wow, I'm not receiving a paycheck for what I'm doing with crew, right? And it's I think part of it would have been pretty weird to go from all in to just nothing. And not that I'm not anywhere in other churches, but like all in and like campus ministry to just I'm just gonna not talk about my faith anymore. I
Mm.
think that would have been some little off. And so I think part of that for me is the keep doing that, keep practicing that muscle, right? So yeah.
Okay, and Drew, what was your question again? Had to do with apologetics?
Yeah, I was just talking about the group discussions you're having. The other ministry you're involved with, is it basically, is it more of a evangelism outreach, or is there an emphasis put on apologetics, or how helpful is apologetic when you're having discussions uh, of these types?
Sure. Yeah, North County Project is I wouldn't call it like an apologetics outlet. It certainly is evangelistic in nature and what they're doing. Although of course a lot of people that are a part of the organization definitely do know much about apologetics, and it is, it's helpful in different ways depending on who they're talking to and where they're at. The thing about apologetics, when it comes to evangelism, is it can actually create a challenge for you, because I think sometimes you get so in the books and you learn so much about apologetics that you begin to grow out of touch with
Hmm.
like the questions people actually have. So I can, man, there are times where I'm studying up something, and the question I get asked is not the question I want, to be asked. So if I'm studying about I don't know, gospel authorship and you know what the early church fathers are saying about that, and it's in, and I'm studying all this information about the reason why we can know who wrote the gospels, and I'm really into it, and I'm really thinking, okay, this person's going to ask me, how can we know that the gospel writers are the names that are attributed to them? And then the person brings up, so hmm My question is, if God is real, then why is there evil? And it's just the problem of evil. And then you're like, oh, the problem of evil. I thought like that was first grade for me. I know how to answer this. But you haven't studied it because you've been, so in the books and you've gotten so, far in advance. And then you're trying to recall what you read in tactics the last time you read it, right? And you can't remember. And then all of a sudden, so, I think that sometimes, we have expectations for what people are questioning, but those expectations are usually wrong. So I think the first thing is actually the first aspect of having apologetics in mind when evangelizing is don't assume you know what the other person's thinking, and let them direct the conversation. Now, there are instances where I think it's very helpful, but I think maybe Brandon alluded to this earlier with the timeline example, or not the timeline. Kind of the first to second based example, but I know Brandon touched on it as well, going down like a number line, right? Or something along those lines where um you maybe like no one can be intellectually convinced to the point where that that intellectual aspect of the faith is the very thing that is what brings them to Christ. At the end of the day, faith is something more than just intellectual belief, right? I guess that's what I'm trying to say. But what apologetics can do is open someone's mind to it. And that's especially something that I've seen it do. Whereas, there may be people that haven't been exposed to Christian that can really, lay things out logically, really take a look at all the, evidence and be able to present it in a convincing way. That's going to open up someone's mind to it because sometimes people don't really know just how strong the evidence is for Christianity. But in terms of someone that's along the path, what I've noticed is uh, arguments about apologetics aren't really what, reap the harvest. It tends to be, the more personal stuff is what I've noticed, or, the conviction of sin, of course, is, the heavy, the conviction of the Holy Spirit is the one who hits cleanup and, hits those grand slams, if you will, right? If you're using the baseball analogy, it's not, the apologetics could get you on base, but, the Holy Spirit and the conviction of the Spirit and, you know, things that are of God and not just words that we can say or what bring people to the Lord. And so apologetics certainly helps and aids, but it's not certainly the very thing that is going to do it for you. But in terms of North County Project, as I mentioned earlier, yeah, it's it's uh it's all evangelist. It is evangelistic, so that's not as much yeah tied into it. It's not like a Ratio Christi or which is a great organization.
Could you remind me what the groups are that what Nick calls them on campus? Noah?
Mhm. Yeah, so he has the Bible Dialogue, North County Project. They do the Bible Dialogue, which is seeker friendly, but they also do this group that is a discipleship making community, which is for people that have already
DMC is what they're called.
right, right. Um, DMC, not to, yes. So essentially what they do there at North County Project as well on the college campuses, and not just the college campuses, but in general, is they have these groups where people who are, already believers, they go through the Sermon on the Mount and they not only do they study the Sermon on the Mount, but they also discuss, how they make disciples. And it can get experimental at times, because of course I think evangelism, especially in on a college campus compared to maybe a public park, you're gonna have to be experimental with your interactions. But yeah, so that's essentially what it is. So as I mentioned, I think I said this, I alluded to this a few times. The goal of the organization North County Project is to not only help people come to know Christ, but then to strengthen, build up these believers to be people that, they themselves, end up the goal leading a Bible dialogue themselves and teaching other people and teaching those people to teach other people, because it's really cool how the kingdom of God works and how there's like this exponential growth thing happening, if when it's done well. So yeah, that's I hope does that answer that, Brandon?
Yeah, the only reason I wanted to bring that up was because I was going to make the point. that we can sit here and talk about apologetics all day and answers people all their apologetic questions, but as probably both David and Drew, you guys know, people can get all their intellectual needs met and they still won't believe, right? It's just nature, right? It's just people, it's because they aren't actually, it's not the questions themselves, it's the heart that's behind that question, right? Because it's how many it's not I'm going to answer 77 questions and then there. Now you believe in Jesus. That if you were able to do that, props to you. But but I think one of the main things, at least from what my limited experience with North County Project has been, because I was in one of the DMC groups that Noah was talking about for a little bit with Nick. And we keep mentioning Nick. He's mentor both of him and I.
He's a good
So
dude.
You can
yeah,
get to know him actually on our most recent episode where he
there you
talks about
go.
miracles. There
Shameless
you go.
plug.
Shameless.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the aspect is that evangelism, can spark a conversation, but people they grow in community, right? It's not this I just told you the gospel and now off to the races, that there you go. I'm leaving you behind. It's we're growing together in you know, the one another's, right? We're growing together in that. None of other one another's are addressed to do alone. It just wouldn't make sense. You can't do it. Most of the New and Old Testament, you can't do it by yourself, right? It requires you to have someone else, requires you to have community. So I think that good introduction to it, from what I've seen with NCP, is a good start, right? So. And I think all of us here can attest to we grew because someone else was with us at least. So
All right, we are getting really close to the end of the hour here. So before we go, is there anything we missed? Anything you guys want to cover, or anything else that you want to bring up?
Yeah, real quick. So if you want to check out North County Project, we've been talking about them. Their website is northcountyproject.com. I'm actually going to type it into my computer to make sure North County Project. This actually leads to their website. Yes, northcountyproject.org, excuse me. And you can read up about their mission, their ministries, the apprenticeships they do. So they've given me more than what I could give back. So a great organization, check them out. And then Stones and Shoes, we're on Instagram, Stones and Shoes, YouTube, Stones and Shoes. I hope that if you type in Stones and Shoes, we pop up. I think, sometimes you need a few more subscribers that pops up right away, but scroll down, you'll find us a picture of our profile pictures of a stone, of course. So
ironically, the
Yep,
picture
you're there.
is a shoe in a stone, not a stone in a shoe. But
not on the YouTube page. On the YouTube
Yeah.
page, it's just a stone.
There
David,
we
did we
go.
pop up?
Yep, first thing.
Okay. First thing, look at that.
Yeah, I'll put
Look
all
at
those.
that.
Yeah, I'll put all those links in the show notes. So
Awesome. Yeah.
get
And
everything down there. So,
You can go to the YouTube channel, hear me talking to a grainy webcam mic because I plugged it into the wrong thing for 40 minutes.
oh, that's never happened
Yeah.
on this show before.
Nope. The
Mm,
frustrating thing is, it had happened like maybe a month earlier on the podcast, and then it happened again on your thing. And like I knew that had happened, so I did everything I could to avoid that, and it still happened.
yeah. It's okay. It's okay, David. It was a pleasure having you on the interview series though. I'm really happy about the contents and what we talked about. But aside from that, thank you guys for also both having us and letting us chat about this. I'll let Brandon go ahead and share any final words as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's great to be able to just talk about it, kind of get it out there, and kind of just be able to kind of exchange thoughts about this whole thing. You guys have been doing this for a while. We're newbies to the whole thing, but we're growing, we're trying. So I
You're
think
gonna go far, kid.
Yeah,
and a lot of that I think for both is faithfulness, right? A lot of it's like not looking at the circumstances and being like, wow, this thing sucks, it's not gonna work, and then just leaving it behind. So because that's really easy. That's really easy. The hard thing is sticking around. But I'm really glad that we got the chance to talk about it. I don't have much to add because I think I spoke a lot already. So so
Anything
yeah.
exciting on the horizon? Anything we should be on the lookout for from you guys?
Yeah, so I'm working on a few videos right now. The one I mentioned earlier, I desired to believe, but I can't. That question,
That's a good one.
it's my favorite topic, and I've always wanted a seeker to approach me with this question. Hasn't been asked yet, but you know what? We're gonna go for it on the internet, and
Oh,
then
now it's gonna happen because you
Yep.
said that.
I hope so.
Fingers crossed.
Yes. Aside from that, I think maybe a coffee tier list is on the horizon, Brand. We got to schedule something for that. And yeah, I think just overall some research videos and whatnot, but that's a little more in the future. But we will be, I think we should maybe on Instagram, Brandon, start sharing about when we're doing the pop-up free bookstores. I've been going to a night market that's near my house in LA County to do it, but
You heard it
it's
here
been a lot of
first.
fun. Yes. So just more of that, and you know, of course, whatever experimentation happens, we could be listening to this podcast like a year from now, and everything we're describing is like nothing that's actually going on. So we'll see.
It's the nature of the game. It's inevitable.
Right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we might have some stuff planned. I mean, we talked a little bit about some potential things more for the interview series. We'll see. It might be just different aspects to see where people care. I mean, a lot of my grounds is mental health stuff and people talking
Mhm.
about that with, I mean, counseling ministry, right? And so we've talked a little bit about that or whatever other potential things people might care about and might be helpful to them. So we'll see. No promises, but I think there's things that are gonna be exciting coming up.
All right, sounds good. Well, Noah, Brandon, thanks for joining us again. Really enjoyed having you on, and good luck in your ministry. We'll definitely be praying for you. And as I said, I'll put all the links to your ministries in the show notes. So people, if you've been scrambling for a pencil for the last 5 minutes, don't worry about it. We got you covered. It'll all be in there. So, all right. With that, we are Tent Making Christianity. You can find us on the web at tentmakingchristianity.com. And there you'll find all links to our social media pages, our Facebook, X, Instagram, email addresses are all on the website. So head on over and check us out. With that, my name is Drew.
And I'm David.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a good week.